I was born in Salt Lake City at 365 Oakley Street. I know that I was born at home, but that's about all I know. My mother's parents lived on one side and my father's parents lived on the other side. And she had two sisters that were my aunts that helped, and I know that they were there to take care and help her. But I had a nurse that delivered me, and it was my aunt's mother-in-law. I remember when I was 5 years old that my grandfather passed away. It was my father's father, and I can still remember the casket, and they had it in the living room, and I can remember that, and I've got a picture of me with all the flowers on the front porch. That's my earliest memory.
Your ancestry comes from where?
England, on both sides.
Are they Mormon pioneer types?
Yes, and my grandma Herridge came across the plains when she was 5 years old, and she sat in the handcart holding her baby brother so her mother could help pull the handcart.
Family stories, family legends about the people who came before you.
Grandma Herridge told me a little bit about the pioneers, and she said that she used to they'd push the table and chairs against the door of their home and to prevent them from coming in. Then she also said she had to walk a mile to get water, and she did that every day to help her mother. And they wore gunny sacks wrapped around their feet when their shoes wore out. Those are about the most that I can remember.
And you were born just before the Depression.
Yes.
Did that have much of an influence on your early years?
I remember my father coming home and saying, well, I had another cut in my salary, but I still have a job. And for his birthday, I cracked some nuts for him and put them in a special dish and gave it to him and said happy birthday. And that's all he got that year for his birthday.
Your parents, what did they do for work?
My father was a shipping clerk at Stravel Patterson. He didn't make very much. I think his salary was like $1.35 an hour. And so we didn't have much, but I had a wonderful childhood. I played with my cousins. I had good neighbors, and the cousins got together a lot. My mother's side, we would get together a lot, and I loved getting together with them. And we'd always have a big dinner over for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I remember one Christmas when I could hear bells ringing outside, and I thought that was Santa Claus. And so I got my cousin and we hid under the bed because we were afraid Santa Claus would see us and wouldn't come in. So Grandma always had a fun party, and we had Thanksgiving dinner there, and she had tables just all along. It was her kitchen and living room and dining room, and the tables went right through. I remember well that I had a new dress, and I thought it was so special. And it was not really that special, but I loved it. I thought it was great, and I remember that well. I used to go over to my grandma Herridge, and she would fix me a slice of bread with plum jam, and it always had gone to sugar, and I didn't like the sugar on the jam. But that's what she always gave me to eat when I went over. And one night I remember sleeping with her, and she took a brick out of the oven, wrapped it in a blanket, and put it at the bottom of the bed so we could keep our feet warm. And that's how she kept her feet warm.
How about your siblings? Where were you in the mix of family?
I was the oldest one. I only have one brother, and he is 5 years younger than I. I can remember going up to my aunt's, my Aunt Bertha, and staying overnight. And my dad came up that morning and he says, "Helen, I have something special to tell you. You have a new baby brother." And I says, "I don't want a new baby brother. I just want to be the special one, you know." But I went home and all was well. We are great friends now, so it's been wonderful.
When your first early days of school, where did you go to grade school at?
I went to grade school at Oniqua, and I can remember so well. My mother made me wear long stockings to keep my legs warm. And so I would get almost to school and stand behind a tree and roll them down so that I didn't have to wear those long stockings. Then when I came home, I stood behind the same tree and rolled up the stocking and came home, and my mother never knew that I did that. Then one day, I loved to play on the tricky bars. And so one day I hung with my knees over the tricky bars with my head down, and I fell and right on my head. I thought I was going to die. And I held my head all the way home crying because I thought my head was going to break. And I got home and my mother said, "You'll be just fine, don't worry about it." So everything was okay.
What about the times, the toys, the movies, the music that you remember?
I had a iron that I loved, those little tiny irons, and it really worked. I mean, you could plug it in. And one day, my brother plugged it in and left it on, and the carpet had a little imprint of the iron, and my parents weren't very happy.
Music lessons or
I
music
did.
lessons?
I took piano lessons, and I didn't do well at practicing. The teacher finally told my mother that it was just leave it alone because I wasn't making any progress, and I didn't want to practice. Now I love to play the piano, and I just play by ear, and I don't do well, but I love to sit and just for my own enjoyment I play.
So did you go to a middle school or
I went to junior high, and it was Jackson Junior High, and I ran for vice president. I got up to the last two, I and Dick Beasley, and he won, and I was very sad, but that's the way it is.
In school, were you good? Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I always liked school. I did. The thing I remember a lot is that my mother was sick for 5 years, and she passed away when I was 13. She was in bed and could not attend any of my school activities. And I used to feel really bad with all my friends brought their moms to school, and I didn't have a mom to bring to school. And I loved my mother so much, and she had two sisters that took over being my mother that were absolutely angels to me. That both lived in Ogden, but they came down often to see that I was okay. When school was out, I went up there and stayed for a long time, 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and they took care of me just like a mother would, and I loved them dearly. My father was very kind, and my mother was very kind. They might scold me, but I never got spanked or whatever. They would explain to me or tell me if I was doing wrong. I remember when I was in junior high, I said to my dad, "Dad, I think I'm going to quit school." That's the maddest I ever saw him. He really was unhappy with me. And boy, I never even thought about that again. I just went to school and was happy to go to school.
Where did you go to high school, and
I went to West High School,
how did that go?
and that was fine. I was in the a cappella. They don't call it a cappella anymore, but I loved that. I loved that. We went to different places and sang, and that was fun. I was in the roller skating club and went to that. I was going with my husband, Corky. We were dating, and we went to all the dances, and he always gave me a beautiful corsage to go to the dance. So that was fun.
What in high school? What are your thoughts about what's going to happen in life? What are you going to do when high school's over?
When I got out of school, I put my application in many places, never did get anything, and my father knew this fellow that was a Utah box, and he asked him if he needed somebody, if I could work there. So I worked there. I made 25 cents an hour.
Was that your first job?
That was, well, when I was in school at Christmas time, I worked at Grant's, and in the store, and I worked all December because they hired the school kids, you know, to work there, and that's what I did. I worked then. Each Christmas while I was in high school, I worked at Grant.
The war just started right when you're still in high school, isn't it?
Yeah. His two brothers were in the service, but we got married, and one night he came home and he says, I just bought an ice cream store. I said, oh no. What are we going to do? You don't know anything about ice cream. And he said, well, it was his good friend, and he had about 5 or 6 ice cream stores. They all had to close because of the war, because he could not get sugar. And so Corky went around and got arrangements to make ice cream, but he could only do it occasionally. So we would open the store while we had the ice cream until it was sold out, and then we'd have to wait until we got more ice cream.
Other than the ice cream shop, did you or he have any jobs?
Yes, he was a carpenter. His father was a contractor, and he built homes, and I worked in the store in the daytime, and then he worked until about 5 o'clock, and then he would go to the ice cream store and work until 10, sometimes 11, and come home. And so he worked hard. He was a really hard worker, and he spent a lot of hours at the store. And I worked in the daytime until the kids came home from school. I have 4 children. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. I had a baby boy that I lost that lived only 4 days. And I had Steve, and then Denny, and then Linda, and then about 8 years or 10 years after that, I had the baby that I lost. And then 2 years after that, I had Connie. And there's 13 years difference between my last Linda and Connie.
How would you describe your parenting style?
Oh, what do you mean? I was mostly the one that was with them because he was working all the time. He worked until late, and so it was I that kind of raised the kids. When they were old enough, when they were 8 or 9, Corky would take them down to the store and have them help him down at the store, he was always wants them to learn to work. And so they did. They learned to work. And they helped him all the time down there on Saturdays. And then when school was out, he took them most every day down there.
What was important for you in terms of raising your children? What did you want them to, how did you want them to grow up?
To love the Lord and go to church and participate in church activities. And their dad taught them how to work. They both were good workers.
Did you always live here in Utah?
Always in Utah. Yeah, I've lived here all my life. Never lived any other place.
How about vacations or travel when you had your family?
We love Hawaii. We've gone to Hawaii about 15 times. And we went when the boys were with us. We went to Hawaii. And the first time we went to Hawaii, my father went to Hawaii on his mission. And that's all I heard about as a child, is how wonderful Hawaii was. And so my goal was to get to Hawaii. My mother had an uncle that he was president of the university. And he died and left all his nieces and nephews an inheritance. My mother had passed away, and so I and my brother got her inheritance. It was $3,000. I thought I was a millionaire. And the first thing I said, I'm going to Hawaii. And I said to my husband, all the family goes. But Connie was only 3 years old at that time. But and the boys were in the service. Well, no, Denny was in the service and Steve was on his mission in Holland. And so the boys couldn't go, but Linda went. And Connie I left with my brother because she was just 3 years old. And I said to Corky, are you going to go with me to Hawaii? And he says, no, I don't care about going to Hawaii. I said, okay, I'll pay for it, and I'm going. So about 3 weeks before, Corky says, I've changed my mind. I think I'll go. I said, wonderful. So I called and there was room, and so we all went. And when we got home, he said, that's the only place I've ever been that is as beautiful as the postcards show it is. We had a wonderful time, and we went back several times since.
Why do you keep going back there?
We love it. My kids still go every year. They love it, and they go every year. And I have gone with them up until the last 2 years. I feel like I'm better off staying at home.
Never crossed your mind maybe to move there?
No. I love where I'm at. I love this area. I am so happy living here. My neighbors and friends and my ward is just wonderful. I love it dearly. And I have traveled a lot. I have been in Europe 2 or 3 times, and or to China. And the worst thing was when Steve had his heart attack. He lived for 3 years after that, but he had on the way to the hospital, not enough oxygen. And so it affected his brain. He was never the same. We had him home for dinner every Sunday and spent the day with him. But it was extremely hard. It was extremely hard. Denny was in an accident, and as he was coming down the off-ramp, a man was coming up, and he hit him head on. And they rushed him to the hospital. He lived for 1 hour. We were in Bear Lake. We had just got to Bear Lake, and there was a note on our door. It says, call the office immediately. And so I went over to the office, and they said, your son has been in an accident. He's in the hospital. You better call. And so I called, and the nurse said, I think you better come home, but I don't want to tell you anymore. So he had died, but she didn't feel like she was the one that wanted to tell me. And so we had put our suitcases on the bed, not unpacked or anything, and so we just put them back in the car and came home. And I knew that he was gone because they wouldn't have said, that they wouldn't tell me. And so I kept saying, I know he's gone, I know he's gone. And Linda would say, oh, no, he's okay, Mom, he's okay. But we got home and he had been killed. And he had a wife and 5 children. My daughters, we have so many good times together, and we do spend a lot of time together. They're workers, they're faithful in the gospel. They are so good to me, and they have wonderful families that I dearly love. And one day he looked out the window and he said, what would you say if we bought the lot across the street and built a house there? Well, this was an orchard. It was lots of fruit trees on it. And I said, well, that's fine. I don't care. That's fine. And it was $5,000, and we weren't sure we could afford that, but we thought we'd give it a try. So he built it, and we moved over. And when we moved in, he had already sold the house across the street that we were living in. He had already sold the house that we were living in, and so we had to move. And this house wasn't quite finished, and there was no the fireplaces were just holes in the wall, and there were no cupboards. I had to put the dishes on the floor and closets, but it wasn't too long, and he got it all finished, and we've lived here for 56 years, and I love it. I love the area. I love the people. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time to have. We had the ice cream, and it was going down, 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 and he said, I've got to think of something. So he said, what if I see if we can make candy? And I never made candy in my life. But he went down to McDonald's and watched them. And he came home and he'd show me what they were doing. And so at our home, I did it downstairs because it was cooler downstairs. And I did mostly nut clusters because anybody can do nut clusters. But we did that and sold them, and it went well. And then he had a recipe from the fellow he bought the ice cream store from of toffee. And so he tried that, and it went well, and then it went better, and every year it's gone a little bit better, and we've done that for, how many years? I guess 30, about, well, more than that, I'm sure.
What's the name of the candy?
Garden Gate chocolate candy, Garden Gate candy. And we have done that with the boys. Denny had a carpet store, and Steve was an attorney. So they went on their own, but the girls have helped, and now the girls run it, and I help. So it's been wonderful. We open the 1st of November and close the 24th of December, and that's it. My grandson runs an ice cream store in the front, and we have a factory in the back, and the girls take care of it. We were married for 67 years, and it was wonderful years. It was. we had our ups and downs because sometimes uh, money wasn't plentiful, and sometimes we struggled, but we always ended up okay. And then he built these apartments, and things have been very good since. We've had the apartments, and he worked very hard. He was a very hard worker, and always was very good to me. One day, for a week, he was bad here, and he couldn't eat anything, and it kept coming up, and it was really hard. So one day I said, I'm going to call the doctor, and he said, so I did, and they said get him in the hospital immediately. So I took him right up, and the next day they operated, and they said we'll do what we can, but it doesn't look good. I was working at the store. We were making candy, and I would work in the morning and then stay with him in the afternoon, then go back to work for a couple hours, and then stay with him in the evening. And that's how in December. But he was in bed all the time. He could not be up and around at all. And this was in December. And so we had our Christmas party that we always have every year there at the... And then he got better enough that I could bring him home. And then he got worse, and I took him back to the hospital. And he was there for 3 weeks. Then we took him over on 45th South and had hospice. And he was there for a week. And he died on Tuesday.
What has all of those things taught you?
Oh my goodness. To be grateful for what I've got. I'm very blessed, and I'm very grateful for what I have.
You feel that you've been more blessed than not.
Yes, I do. I'm very blessed. I have 2 wonderful daughters that just help me with anything I need, and my grandchildren are just wonderful, and they help me as well. I have a wonderful family. I have 32 great-grandchildren. I have 14 grandchildren, and we get together. We have Christmas party always. They always celebrate my birthday and have we had a big Hawaiian one on my 90th birthday, and flew Lays over from Hawaii, and Hawaiian people cooked the dinner and everything for me. And we go to Bear Lake every year in June or July.
But you've had heartache as well.
I have had a heartache. My first one was my mother, and then Steve had his heart attack first, and then Denny got killed, and that was hard.
What is it that you take away from those experiences?
It teaches you to appreciate what you've got, I think. I have much to be grateful for. I do. I have much to be grateful for. I'm going to cry. I'm very grateful for all the things I have. I am. My family is so good to me. They are very good. So I can't complain. I have served in all of the like the Relief Society, the primary, the Sunday school, I have served in all of them. There was 12 of us, and we served in Relief Society together, and so we decided the 12 of us would get together and one night a month have what we call a sewing night. And so we did that, and that has been at least 50 years and all of them are gone, but man and women, except 4 women left. There was 24 with counting the men, and there's 4 of us left. but we were good friends. We went on trips, we went parties together, and had great time.
If the world's still around in 50 and 100 years and they could watch this and they could see you from beyond the grave, what kind of advice can you give?
I would say just be faithful and remember, count your blessings.
What worries you for your posterity?
I think the world is going from bad to worse. I think it's, and they laugh at me. I said, the world is coming to an end. You read the Bible and everything is happening just like what it says. And they laugh at me, but I still think that's true. And I'm just grateful for my family and what I have. And I hope that they stay close to the gospel. That would be my wish.
Why have you always wanted to be good?
I think it's very important to be good. You're a happier person if you're good.
And it probably hasn't been very hard for you. But you did grow up in a different day and age where...
Oh, yes. I didn't have a lot. I did not have a lot. We had not much money, but I had good friends.
Looking forward, looking to after this life even.
I just hope they stay close to the gospel and that they stay well and happy.
What about you? What's your future? What do you hope to do?
I don't know that I have much future. I'm just grateful for every day. I'm grateful that I have health good enough that I can do things that around the house and go places with my family and do things together.
What are your thoughts about living a long life? Here, you're in your 90s. Do you want to be around for 100 years?
If I can be in good health, I'd be happy to be around. I do not want to be a burden. I do not want to have people to have to wait on me. I have that a little bit now, and as long as I can be here and do my own thing.
What would you attribute your lengthy age due to?
I don't know.
Chocolate?
Yeah. Working, I think being active. I firmly believe that being active helps you health-wise. And eating the right, kind of eating the right food. I've had lots of people tease me, my friends in the other ward before I moved here. They used to tease me. They'd say things so I would laugh. And then they would laugh. Oh, we love to hear you laugh. We love to hear you laugh. So that's always been. I would love to see those on the other side. I have many that I would love to see on the other side. But I have people here as well that I dearly love. And as long as I can handle life as good as I have been, I would like to stay. I would like to live. But I have been extremely blessed to have not much illness. So my mother died when she was 36 years old, and my father when he was 59, and I thought for sure that I would not last a long time. I didn't dream that I would last to be 92 years old. Life has been good. I've had ups and downs, but I say life has been good to me. It has, very.